Hi,
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Anything exciting been happening in your life that you would like to share?
Since the last time, I don't know about exciting. I mean, by the time this goes out, we would have done that a bit a while ago, but Anzac Day, I managed to get up for the dawn service this time. I generally do go every year, maybe miss 1 or 2 years. But yeah, and dawn service, only because it's literally like a roll out of bed and it's on my doorstep.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
So that was nice. And it was interesting because, there's a lot more people there than I remember than usual.
Okay, that's good.
Which is good. And there's quite a lot of young people there. They say, I don't know, there was a sentence that some of the speakers, they have the mayor and they talk about some of the soldiers who died and gave their lives defending in the wars who live in the area, which I thought was a really good touch. And then a couple of times it was said by different people, we're not here to glorify war and battles and victories. We're here to pay our respects and gratitude to those who gave their lives to, the country. So I thought that was a good thing to say. Because really at the end of the day, well, maybe some people do, but I can't imagine people wanting to risk their lives. I mean, I wouldn't, but some people are wanting to kill other people. But again, exceptional reasons why people do that, where, we have we need armies, I guess. We do to defend certain things. So it's a tough one. But it's just making me think, because of what's happening now in the world, it could easily be heading to more. It's quite
more conflict. Yeah.
More conflict that need soldiers. And I think we're lucky. I mean, we might not be. It might change where, there was men of him 16 going to war then. I don't know what this minimum age is now. I think it's like a minimum age. Might be a bit older. But, or, mandatory kind of, what do you call it, where you have to go if you're, to be honest though, you can't make it mandatory for men and not women these days, if you were going to do that again. Mandatory service. But they do that when they really need more. They do that in countries when they need more soldiers. Need a bigger army. So let's just hope we never have to do that ever again. But anyway, gosh, I'm really depressing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any, I'm not sure which countries still have that kind of situation. What's it called? National service, I think.
National service, yeah. Well, Korea.
Oh, if the Swiss still do it.
I don't know. Is it South Korea? What about South Africa? I know they used to. I don't know if they still do.
No, I'm not sure actually.
And South Korea did. It's a big deal. I don't know if they still do either, but there was a few. I know someone who in South Africa who refused and just put in prison as a, what's it called, a conscientious objector. Is that what they call it? I think that's what you call it.
Maybe.
Oh, that's what they refer to
themselves. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know if it actually had to be in prison, but I think it was like on probation, like they had to do like a lot of communities. I think there's community service instead as a punishment. But anyway, interesting conversation that was. What about you? What have you been up to since I last spoke to you?
Working, because we are trying to launch a business.
A website?
A website. It's become bigger than very complicated. And being in Europe, we're dealing with multiple languages. So that's also added a whole other layer of brain kind of meltdown. But yeah, no, we're kind of getting there. I might be launching today, actually.
Wow, that's exciting. Will you send me the link if you do?
Of course, yeah. And got it going on YouTube and Instagram.
Thanks. Do you want to
all that new?
Do you want to put a call out now? What's it called?
LaSpeziaGuide.com. And it's all about coming to Cinque Terre, La Spezia, surrounding Dulce of Poets, the area here, which is just really spectacular and beautiful. But we found that a lot of people, they kind of head to Cinque Terre and they don't kind of miss out on all the other amazing things that are happening here. So yeah, it's our guide to helping people come here and have a better experience. And also to help other businesses in the area, businesses that are really good at what they do, like some of the restaurants that are down the little side streets and tucked away in alleyways, and they just don't see the same kind of volume of tourist business that, all the other places do that are on the high street. So, yeah, so we just want people to have a better experience, really. And yeah, that's what we are aiming to do. But yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. Today we launch, and then we're going to go away next week to France for a little break.
Exciting. I love it. I love it. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. So as you know, Tracy, having your own business and working for yourself, it's really hard work. So I'm kind of working till 8, 9 o'clock every night, just trying to get things done. But we're getting there.
Beautiful. Oh, God, I'm so glad. It feels so nice when you hit your goals and achieve things, your milestones.
Yeah. Hopefully today.
And then that will inspire me as well, I'm sure. Inspiring.
Yes. I know.
Okay, so the first story, we're kind of depressing these stories, but again, we have the difficult conversations, we share the difficult things because it's still happening. We want people to be aware of some of the challenges that people are facing in the world that you might not be hearing about on the news every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So this story is from Reuters. It's from Africa. And basically, Gambia MP is defending the bid to legalize female genital mutilation, FMG. So,
OMG, FMG.
Yeah, OMG, FMG, exactly. So there's a Gambian lawmaker, Almani Giba, started his campaign to overturn a 2015 ban. So it was only in 2015 when they actually banned it. So it wasn't even 10 years ago. It was not illegal up until 2015 and widely practiced. Ban on female genital mutilation after the West African country imposed its first fines on those found guilty of the practice last year. Despite concerns about the leniency of sentences, a $220 fine for 3 women accused of cutting 8 infant girls. Anti-FGM activists welcomed the ruling as a rare victory against a culture of impunity that typically shields offenders in countries where such mutilations occur. But the convictions also prompted a backlash among Gambia religious leaders and inspired Giver's push to overturn the 8-year ban on what he calls female circumcision. Parliament is now considering a bill proposed by this MP, to the alarm of advocacy groups who say it represents a step backwards in the efforts to end a practice that can cause a myriad of health issues. So it talks about different organisations urging the government, the Gambian government, to uphold the anti-FGM law. So obviously there's 2 perceptions about this. And I know where I sit on it. It's like, shouldn't be doing it. It's totally wrong. Because there's firstly, there's no medical benefit. And then I'm trying to think, what would you compare it to? You may compare it to like male circumcision, potentially. Male circumcision, that's, but some people are very against that as well. I'll be honest, some people are not. I heard somebody actually talking about it in the dog park the other day, male circumcision. How he thinks it's cleaner. But it's still like an incidence of diseases because a man hasn't been circumcised. I don't know if there is, not that I'm aware of. So I don't know.
I think that the female genital mutilation though is
it's a lot more different and more severe.
It's a bit different,
yeah, it certainly is.
It also
it's more invasive.
As well, damage to the nerve, all the nerves and the sensation in that area. It does. So it's a completely different thing.
I think so, but I'm just giving another example of what people say, well, it's the same thing.
Yeah, of course.
I totally think so, because you're right. It's a lot more damaging physically to the woman's body. For what purpose? And let's see what it says. I mean, we have actually talked about this before, because I'm sure we've talked about other stories where there's been activists and women have experienced this who are activists.
Yeah.
to raise awareness, with helping women that are still traumatized from it in their adult lives, still affected by it medically as well.
Of course. Well, it's something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Sex and the feeling of sexuality is a big part of human nature, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it would, of course, affect a lot of people.
So according to Gibber, who's the independent MP and government critic, he told Reuters the ban was not wanted by most people in Gambia, a predominantly Muslim country, where some believe cutting a part of the clitoris is required by Islam and key to a girl's passage to womanhood.
Yeah, just on that point, because the WHO, they released some information on this. And I was having a read of that, and it actually said that there's actually no religious scriptures that support or prescribe the practice. So there's nothing like kind of written down in the Quran or in other religious scripts that say that this is, part of the religion.
So it's interesting that I just said people make up their own rules.
Yeah, it's just stupid rules, isn't it?
People just make up their own rules. And even if it was, honestly, it's very controversial. My problem with religion, even like say the Bible, the Quran, is there's some I like to see the similarities and the patterns across all types of religions. And there's some I feel like there's some ancient wisdom to be shared that's written there.
Of course.
But I also feel like they're written by man and their interpretation or how they wanted, I think, manipulated even how they wanted things to be at the time for whatever reason. So I think it's complex. I don't think in its entirety it should be taken word for word as written, because I feel like it's being amended over time to suit the agenda and agency, mostly men, of honest advice. So,
and I would agree with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with, and it's a good thing to have faith and belief in something that can really add a whole kind of extra dimension to your life and the purpose for your life.
Exactly.
Absolutely. These scriptures and things like that have been written down by man. So who knows if Allah is out there or God or whatever, who knows what, that was meant to be. But certainly whatever's been written down by us as humans is probably not the exact interpretation.
Or open to interpretation or contextual. Sometimes there's a reason for doing certain things in certain times. And sometimes I think it's common sense. It should be common sense or an intuition about where it's appropriate now.
Yeah.
But especially as we gain more knowledge.
Yeah.
If you think about, didn't have the knowledge then that we have now. And especially as we gain more knowledge about how damaging some things are, or the changes in the environment, so many things to consider that it doesn't take things without, so inflexible. This bugs me. But anyway. So this MP saying we will not be dictated by Western philosophy and their views on what we do. Who are they to tell us our culture, our religion, our traditional beliefs? Honestly. So
which is in some respects, each country should be free to kind of, have the core of their philosophies and principles, etc. But as an individual person, the women that are living in Gambia, as individuals, they should have the right to then choose what happens to their bodies.
But the problem as well is women are doing it, and they're doing it to children. So the children certainly do not have a choice. They're doing it to infants and children. And this is, part of the problem. It says here, the government figures show 73% of Gambian women aged between 15 and 49 have undergone what they call FMG. Of these, almost 3/4 had their clitoris fully removed, along with other parts of their genital. So, a public consultation to practice is scheduled to take place this month, which this article was released in April this year. So that's what
I can't even believe that this guy who's, lobbying to get this practice reinstated, I can't believe it's even a conversation. The law's it's kind of been banned. I don't know why somebody didn't tell him to shut up.
I know. Or pranks, or all these things that they're finding out, like the health survey in 2020 found that 46% of circumcised Gambian women between the age of 15 and 49 that had been circumcised believe the practice should be discontinued. I mean, nearly 50%, it's not really high enough, but and around 40% of men felt the same way. So, but that means 60% of men didn't, and 54% of women didn't, or didn't comment. So I don't know, it's not really clean cut.
Yeah.
And it says no country has lifted a ban on FGM before. And these are concerns Gambia's bill could embolden a budding movement of pro-FGM activism in Africa hinged on self-determination and the right to choose. And sometimes I think it's a lot about not like being told what to do, like almost like a most rebellious reaction rather than really considering the topic or the issue. But anyway, there's a growing wave of arguments regarding the consent of adult women using the language of human rights and bodily autonomy. A program officer of advocacy group Equality Now saying that in Gambia, most girls are cut before turning 5.
Wow.
At a national level, FGM is banned in over 70 countries worldwide, of which at least 35 are in sub-Saharan Africa, according to the World Bank. So advocacy groups say such laws are often just rubber stamps, barely enforced in practice, which is true because people still be doing it anyway, but still remain a crucial stepping stone in the fight against FGM.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Wow, I cannot believe that most of these little girls are being cut before turning 5. That's ridiculous, isn't it? And this is even after the ban.
I mean, it was underground anyway. It wasn't like you went to hospital and it was all, knocked out. None of that. It was still the way it was still traditionally done anyway. It's just secretive. Whereas if you think about abortion that they ban, that's going to be underground without all the bells and whistles because,
yes,
ramifications.
It's going to be people that want do it illegally and okay, wow, that's crazy.
I know. It's just
so even though the ban has been enforced, it's still happening.
Still happens
now this guy's
anyway.
wanting to overturn it. They're even open to a conversation about overturning it, which is just nuts.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you for finding that. It's interesting to hear it's not actually in the Quran. A lot of people claim things about religion and it says this and it says that. And
because it's like you were saying before, it's like a individual's interpretation a lot of the time, and then there could be individuals that are kind of a bit extremist that get a bit of momentum behind them and a bit of movement, and this could have happened decades ago, and now everybody just believes that that's fact, as opposed to somebody just deciding that that's what we're going to do now.
And just saying it's our tradition or a woman's rite of passage for what reason, for what purpose, what does it accomplish?
Well, it is to do with sexuality. I think one of the things is to, stem their sexual urges and controlling their sexuality to promote. So this is again from the WHO, to promote free marital virginity and marital fidelity. So basically, if you don't enjoy sex, then you're not going to go seeking it out.
That's the reason.
It's the idea. But it's, that's just nuts.
Basically. But men can do it, stick it in anyone.
Yeah, do what they want.
They can stick it in anyone they want, as many people.
You're not having premarital sex by yourself, are you? But it's fine for men to be, sowing their seeds or whatever, and not for women, obviously.
Can't even. I was like, okay, make it legal when we can do the same to men. I'm sure we can stop very quickly. Take away your sexual...
Or, I think as well, it's a person wanted that and wasn't under outside pressures or influence and could make a decision in their own mind about it.
As an adult.
Then I think, okay. But I can't think why I certainly wouldn't want to choose that for myself. I can't see why other women would want to choose that for themselves, So, but yeah, I think the biggest problem for me is that it's children, and then you've got the forces and pressures of not being able to make your own decisions because you're part of a religious community or a community full stop that want this. So that's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
Feel really sorry for these women and girls out there.
Yeah. And for me, the problem as well is the long-term impact, implications that it causes. Maybe not a woman, but a lot of them have such problems. And it's like, and it's like nobody cares. Well, the people that want it don't care about that. Actually.
Yeah, they don't care. As if there's probably not enough problems for people in Gambia to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Let alone this. But anyway, so shall I move on to the next article?
Aye.
Yeah, so this one is in Wired, and it's about how Google, or there's a claim that Google has used a Black deaf worker to tout its diversity and to appear as a more open corporate working culture. So there's a lady called Jalon Hall who is working for Google. She was previously working at a law firm, got approached about a job at Google, and she basically moderates YouTube videos. So she's been doing that, and I think she started just around the time of the pandemic. So she's been working through that whole COVID period. And she's still working at Google, but she's claiming that they've been discriminatory against her, I guess, and been using her to tout that Google is an inclusive company. So they're kind of rolling her out when it's necessary as their Black deaf employee. It kind of is making them look good. But then behind this rosy marketing, Jalon Hall is accusing Google of subjecting her to both racism and autism. So she says there's a prejudice against the deaf or hard of hearing. And she says the company has denied her access to a sign language interpreter, which I believe was agreed to when she took on the role, to help support her in her job. But also, apart from that, they've also failed to give her some upgrades to essential tools. I'm assuming there's some pieces of software, that kind of thing, that she needs to perform her job properly and to do what's asked and required of her in her role. She's filed 3 HR complaints and she's sued Google. So she's actually taken it that step further, alleging discrimination based on her race and disability. The company responded this week, arguing that the case should be thrown out on procedural grounds, including bringing the claims too late, but didn't actually deny Hall's accusations, which is a little bit kind of weird. You throw it out because you didn't follow procedure, but not actually addressing the fact that maybe all of this is true. She says Google is using me to make them look inclusive for the deaf community and the overall disability community. In reality, they need to do better. She says, I was born to push through hard times. It would be selfish to quit Google. So she's still working with them. I think she's moved departments. She says, I am standing in the gap for those often pushed aside. Hall's experiences, which had not been previously reported, are corroborated by over 24 internal documents seen by Wired, as well as interviews with 4 colleagues who she confided in and worked alongside. Employees who are Black or disabled are entirely minorities at Google. Black women only make up about 2.4% of Google's US workforce. That's crazy, actually.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, 2.4%. That's just Black women, not Black disabled women. Just Black women. That's crazy. Several former Black women employees, including AI researcher Timnit Gebru and recruiter April Curley, have publicly alleged that they were sidelined by an internal culture that disrespected them. Curley is leading a proposed class action lawsuit accusing Google of systemic bias, but has lost initial court battles. I mean, it'd be quite hard to take on a giant like Google, wouldn't it? Anything, even just the idea of suing Google, you'd be like, how do I even start that process?
Well, she's very brave, and I guess she's got law experience, so
Yes.
very brave. What's
So
the
they
racial
said,
discrimination that she's perceiving?
well, I guess I'm not exactly sure because it doesn't go into that, but it does say this is like this other lady, this people Curly and Timnit Gibru, who have said that Black women are being sidelined by an internal culture that disrespected them.
Yeah, and the
So
thing
it
is,
doesn't really kind of go into details about what that
no.
really is.
The
Yeah.
problem is when you're minority and intersectionality, so you've got several labels. You know, she identifies as, well, deaf, and Black, and a woman. There's 3 there. So it doesn't really matter which one she's being discriminated against. Could be either, any, all. And the only thing very obvious things are the lack of support. She's complained to HR. She's not been given all the tools she needs to do her job as a deaf person.
And what was agreed from
What was agreed,
the report. Yeah.
if that's true. And then the other thing as well is only how much percent of people in there are Black. So there's definitely a problem. There's definitely a racism problem. So that, to me, that just speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And given that it's an American company and America's got quite a lot of Black people. Interesting. What did they say?
Oh, they just said, we are committed to building an inclusive workplace and offer a range of accommodations to support the success of our employees, including sign language interpreters and captioning. So I don't know.
Is that what
maybe
they
they have like that's what they've said. She's saying that they didn't do that. So I don't know. Maybe they have like a minimum requirement. Maybe your disability needs to meet certain, measurements or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They're not really coming out and saying anything.
They're not denying what, her situation, but they're just making a general statement, I guess.
Interesting. I just thought, well, honestly, when I first looked at the story, I was like, and this is my bias, to even consider that a Black deaf woman would be able to get a job. Well, that sounds terrible, but
it sounds like she was approached. So maybe they were looking for, somebody that was, maybe they were specifically looking for. I mean, I think that's what she's also claiming, not that she was headhunted for that reason, but that they are kind of rolling her out to, make themselves look inclusive.
Yeah.
So it's like she's ticking a box for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says here that 2 separate audiologists confirmed that Hall needed a sign language interpreter full time. And so she also signs pre and post segregation Black ASL. So that's kind of American Sign Language ASL, which uses two-handed signs and incorporates some African American vernacular. So basically, they were saying she needed somebody, or at least 2 separate audiologists provided reports saying what they recommended, and she hasn't been provided with that.
And I don't know how big WWYD is, but we don't use stories or see. Well, I haven't used many stories from this source before. It doesn't seem to be big news, does it? It's not mainstream. It's not made it into mainstream news.
No, it hasn't.
And you'd think so. With such a company with such a big reputation, so huge. What is it's a Fortune 50 company, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
To be honest, though, I think these big companies are getting sued left, right, and centre all the time for all kinds of things.
Right. Okay.
People, and probably a lot of these HR-related type issues. I mean, Amazon's constantly getting sued here, there, everywhere. All different kinds of things.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't always make employees. It's just this is interesting. This is just interesting. But yeah, I think it's terrible.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
So it says even here that US law requires companies to provide reasonable accommodations to a disabled worker unless it would cause the employer significant difficulty or expense.
So she's expected to pay for the employer difficulty expense or the worker difficulty expense?
The employer. Yeah, the employer is required to accommodate the worker.
So maybe they're saying it's too expensive, but then why say they would do it if they wouldn't?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because really, you're
And I
hiring a
mean, the
second
other,
person. You're hiring
yeah,
two
it is like
people.
hiring this other, exactly. That is it. I think it's like a full time, you know, you can't just, oh, I suddenly need an interpreter now, and then they appear from nowhere. They've got to be there and accessible to you, don't they? So, yeah. So she said without an interpreter, she was struggling to meet her quota. So it didn't sound like the right job for her anyway, really. She's got hearing difficulties, and then she's having to moderate YouTube videos.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good fit, honestly. The job to the role. It really does sound like they hired it just for diversity, tick box.
Yeah. I mean, she's doing a different job now, but yeah, I mean, moderating YouTube videos. She said her quota was 75 videos each day.
So she was supposed to watch
maybe 1 an hour. So
I don't even know if I get through 70. How long the videos were, I guess.
Maybe you need a second person.
No, I got through 75 YouTube videos a day.
Yeah, I don't. Could you imagine? That would do your head in.
I know.
That's a lot of videos, isn't it? Oh my goodness.
It really is.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah. No, that would really seriously do your head in. Anyway, I mean, that's the long and short of that article. It's about the way she's feeling that she's been discriminated against, and she hasn't been heard, been to HR numerous times. They've kind of ignored the whole issue, and now she's ready to form a complaint and now taking it up as a legal case.
Well, interesting. Let's wonder what happens. Maybe we'll find out the outcome of that. I'm sure it'll take forever.
Yeah. Anyway, that's on Wired. It's a very in-depth, long article. We've just kind of skimmed it there. But yeah, what have you got, Tracy?
So it's been in the news a few times. I thought it quite interesting. And it's, along the theme of diversity in the workplace. It's Australian news on ABC. And it was article dated 21st of April, so relatively recent. And the title is Bronwyn Bott and Lucy Bradlaugh want to become Australia's first job-sharing MPs. So this definitely has people divided. The way I'm worried, I'm like, what's wrong with that? Yes, because there'll be people completely opposed. If they can work out a creative way to make it work, let them make it work. That's how I think, as opposed to just saying, no, it can't work. The problem will be challenges, is we might be able to overcome them. So that's my opinion before I start reading, because I didn't read it. So you've got Bronwyn and Lucy. And Bronwyn's a mum of 3 and had never considered entering politics until a long-time friend came to her with this proposition. Would she like to run for Parliament together as a single candidate? So job share. This is in late 2022. Yeah. And on Saturday, Miss Bott and Lucy Bradlaugh began their campaign to be Australia's first political job share candidates. Running on a platform of action on climate change, integrity in politics, and reducing cost of living pressures, they hope to be elected as independents in the Melbourne seat of Higgins at the next federal election. And they are aware skeptics will have questions. So things like, how would voting work? What happens if there's a policy disagreement? And is this even legal? One member of Parliament has already called the proposal completely unworkable, but Miss Bradlaugh and Miss Bott are determined to prove that politics can be done differently. Parliament has become an increasingly exclusive arena reserved for those with the pedigree, finances, and support systems that allow them to be full-time, always on, and available. Miss Bradlaugh said, it's time that changes. So when Miss Bott returned to work as an investment banker after maternity leave 7 years ago, she regularly came up against the challenge of combining part-time work with leadership roles. Watching her peers and friends come up against the same struggle inspired her to fight to make it possible to job share at one of the country's biggest, highest levels of leadership, federal parliament. And she says, right now, if you're not willing to work full-time, 70 hours a week, 22 weeks a year in Canberra, you can't participate. And she says Parliament should be like any other workplace where it's possible to work flexibly, job share, and therefore have different faces of leadership. So Miss Bradlaugh, a political communications specialist and former lawyer, said job sharing won't just open doors for working parents. It could boost political opportunities for people many different backgrounds and walks of life, such as women, people with disability and carers, to have a say on the policies that actually impact their lives. So while the current parliament has been hailed the most diverse in history, it still has a long way to go to truly reflect modern Australia. So there you go. This is about opening parliament to a much broader group of people who aren't willing or able to work in a 24/7 role. Yeah, that's a practical thing. Diversity in parliament. Australia's leadership is still in the hands of people much older than the national average age, which is 38 and a half years. 39% of lower house MPs and 57% of senators are women. 7.5% of all parliaments have overseas non-European backgrounds, compared to approximately 25% of the general population. 1 out of 226 parliamentarians publicly identify as living with a disability, compared to 1 in 4. 4.8% are First Nations background, compared to 3.2% of the population. That's good. Wow, that's interesting. I'm just looking at some of the, the backlash, like how do you address certain things? So what was the question? So it's getting ideally, the Electoral Act will be amended to allow more than one person's name to be on the nomination form. That's one thing to do when you're voting. So it is about voting. At the end of the day, people won't like it. They won't vote for them. Because, they're going to be elected members. Not that I think that should happen, but that's what, people will speak. The people will speak by their votes. If we have parliament...
I think, fundamentally, the question is, can these people add value to parliament? And like you said, it's going to be the voters that determine that, right? If they feel like they can have a voice in parliament via these two women job sharing, and that's probably like the most important thing.
Yeah, and they're going to have to justify and explain how it will work, because that's what they'll have to do. I mean, that's what you would do in any industry,
in any situation. Yeah,
and there's
like going back nearly. How old am I now? So 20 years ago, when I was working in the UK for a large blue chip company, we had 2 ladies that did a job share. Where one was working 2 days, one was working 3 days. That's 20 years ago. And I've got to say, they made it work. So I cannot even think of a single complaint about it, or it even seeming like, why is that allowed to happen? Or how is, it wasn't even because they had things in place to make it work, processes, the way that they manage their emails, the way that they manage the communications, the way that they handed over to each other. That was like 20 years ago in a big blue chip company.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they can work.
Yeah.
I mean, in other companies, there's definitely exact precedents that it's worked in other organizations and other industries. These, people's questions are, how would it work? And they're saying, well, we work 1 week on, 1 week off with a handover at the end of each week. So it's not like in the days in the week, it's a full week. And then, here you'd be dealing with, as a constituent, depending on whose week it was. And then wages and entitlements will be split. I guess the question is, when do they both need to be somewhere at the same time? Because that's when it seems like double the cost. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, because I don't know what really they do. Like, so would they never be in would they never be in the House at the same time? Would it only be on their day, for example? Or an event where MPs had to be at, would they both go, or would only one of them ever go? I don't know. And they said, we'll have an organised system in place, organised conversations and mechanisms to work through, like you would any corporate environment. And then the biggest one is, well, what if you don't agree? And they said,
on a vote.
Yeah, what if they don't agree? Who gets to vote? Like on a conscious vote, for example.
I think the easy answer to that is whoever's week it is to be on, then they get the vote.
Yeah. It says, if I was a candidate in an election and my opponent were 2 people looking to job share, I would find that campaign very easy to win. That's what he's saying, that, But what they're saying, that I think they said they'd have a dispute resolution strategy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
To address it. So I think the only way they're going to get this through is if they've got a really robust plan of how they get over all these basically objections to why it wouldn't work. I just think people don't like change. I think it's a really practical, good idea. We're living in a society of burnout and stress where people don't get to spend time with their families, whether that's a choice or not. But imagine if you do have the choice, because some people maybe don't have that luxury, that privilege. So quite frankly, I think it's, we need to think of new ways of working if it's to change the bad things, the detrimental things that we have in the workforce and the way we work and the culture of work that we have. I actually remember hearing a conversation recently where somebody was hiring and they narrowed down to a candidate they really wanted to hire. And this candidate at the second or third interview basically requested that they were allowed to leave work early to pick their child up from school. And the person hiring was like, "No, we can't do that. It's not workable." And it was a senior leadership, and the rationale was it's a senior leadership role. And, clients, you need to be available and whatever in business hours for our clients and the work we do. I'm thinking perhaps it's just an old mindset and not thinking about how that could actually work and not wanting to think about it, maybe not having the headspace to think about it. Too high.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally going back years and years, you had a working, 9 to 5. That was the typical office working. I just talk about that environment that we're familiar with. But as we know, that's not how things have evolved. Now there is no strict office time, is there? You can be asked to attend a meeting at 7 a.m. in the morning. You can be asked to attend a meeting at 10 p.m. at night. Do you know what I mean? It's because a lot of companies are global now. It's not just our jobs were like that, but a lot of companies are global, and the expectation to work beyond the 9 to 5 is there.
Yeah.
So why can't it be the other way, that the flexibility can be in both directions?
Yeah.
Because, just because you need to leave at 3 o'clock to pick up your kids doesn't mean that you can't work at 6 to make up the time. As we know, there's flexibility to be had. So, I saw as well as an interesting comment, if you're not able to commit 100% to being a federal member of parliament, it's probably not the right time for you. But they are willing to commit 100% when they need to be at work, just like everybody else. Yeah, I think that comment's a bit stupid, really, because as you said before, they need to be in Parliament 22 weeks of the year. So what about the other 30 weeks?
Yeah.
So, you're not being 100% a federal member of Parliament at that point, are you? So it's when you need to be there. If you're 100%, that's what's required of you.
Exactly. You're there when you need to be is 100%. But also, on the other side, because of us, we know all the challenge, all the oppositions and concerns, but imagine how much fresher you are. You've done a week and then you have a week with your kids or whatever, your family. How much fresher you are, which I think is a good thing. Rested you are, good thing.
Motivated.
And,
like you said, with burnout and stuff, nobody's 100%, really. Modern working life with everything that's demanded of you, you cannot be 100% all the time. But maybe if you're job sharing, you get close to the 100%.
Yeah. There's things for people to consider. And you're right.
Good point.
So many companies are global. Just think about it. Who said 9 to 5? Why? Why 9 to 5? Not most productive. And we're working with the company where 10 o'clock is there 10 a.m. So, we've got clients in different time zones. So it would make more sense that we're flexible rather than doing traditionally 9 to 5 plus. Which is kind of seems to be what's expected. I think as long as you can make it work, you get the job done, you meet your targets, your goals. If you can make it work, then what's the problem?
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
I know. Anyway, what else?
Fingers crossed that, whatever at least they get a chance. Fingers crossed they at least get a chance to get put on the ballot, and that the Australian public make the decision from there on.
Yeah, and I just think they make another point. It'll open up opportunities for so many other people if that can become an option for people.
Well, which is what they were saying, isn't it? That
Mm.
it's it's sort of it being elitist.
Yeah.
People that can afford to do it, or if you've got the financial support or whatever it is, that, and open up more opportunities, not just for women, but for for other people with families as well. Because even for men, it's a hard ask to be away from family and while Parliament sitting.
I'm just thinking of what would you do before we wrap up? What would you do? What would you do? I'm trying to think if I can recall any seemingly on the surface ridiculous requests in the workplace for flexibility. I don't really. But the way my mind works, I wouldn't think anything's ridiculous. I just think it's ridiculous that we don't give men or people with children the flexibility. This whole idea that the women are always the primary carer, although that's changed a lot over the years. The fact that they even call it primary care. But I just think men and women should just get the same amount of time and opportunity to have the time off, no matter who's the primary carer.
Yeah.
But then I also think, then every person should get the opportunity to have time off. Every worker. But then it gets complicated and it's not that straightforward.
Yeah.
Because what if you have lots of kids, then how's that different? How's that different if somebody doesn't have kids? That kind of thing. It's not straightforward. Let me think. Can you think of what would you do? Because I didn't think of one.
No, I can't think of what would you do. But I can just talk about that point that you made there about men needing, you should be equal. At the last proper job I had, there was a guy in a senior director position, and he made the decision to have 3 months off when his baby daughter was born. So, to be the primary carer and he was the stay-at-home dad for 3 months. And I just think that if somebody in his position, he just seemed to always be working really hard, had a lot of pressures, a big team to manage. If somebody like that in his position can make that decision to spend time with his baby daughter that's just been born, I think that virtually anybody, could also do it. And that it should be more encouraged.
Was that widely accepted, and did he come back to work?
He came back to work. It was very widely accepted. I don't know. I guess it was probably a more kind of open-minded, forward-thinking company that I was working at. But yes, it was why it wasn't like a strange thing. It was like, congratulations to you for making that work, and deciding that's what you wanted to do. Yeah.
And do you think it would have been a different story if it was a woman, or you just think that's how forward-thinking the company was?
Well, no, because women do have maternity leave, don't they?
Yeah, but if she was a director, I wanted to take 3 months and come back. I don't know if that happens at that level, or how often that happens at that level. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because I guess a lot of women, by the time they make it to that position, would have already maybe had their children.
Yeah, perhaps
by that age. A lot of women, I'm not saying obviously, but
no.
Yes, it's
Okay.
a less common situation.
It's not really a what would you do. I'm just trying to think in the context of our industry, like CRAs, for example. If she came to me wanting to work job share, it would be easy, I think, for CRAs. Anyway, I think that would be easy to job share CRAs. And I've always had the idea that for a project anyway, there should be 2 working on one project. So there's always a backup. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if you think that would be easy or not. I think it could be.
Yeah, I suppose it's just it's like anything, isn't it? If you've got the right processes in place and doing things in an organized way, then it becomes possible or easier to do. Like I said, I've seen it done and it worked perfectly well. And, and maybe it's a little bit less efficient than one person because there is that handover time. There is time catching up on emails and things that have happened, organizational information, all that kind of thing. You do lose time, but then as you said before, as one individual person, maybe you become less efficient as well because you get burnt out. So
yeah, Yeah, exactly. I think I would always consider trials as robust
Yeah.
plan. Trials and robust plans,
Yeah.
for sure. Anyway, I thought, well, that's it. I haven't got a what would you do this week. I'll just think of one next time. What you do? Yeah, I don't know. I think, what would you do? Oh, is there at the... Well, no, because we've already argued well, not argued. We've already debated these in our stories. I was thinking, what would you do if a man who believed in FMG said it was just the same as male circumcision, or compared it to male circumcision? But we already had that conversation. So I can't think of anything else.
I don't know why anybody would even believe in it. I can't even get my head into that space.
No.
Yeah.
No. What do you think of male circumcision? What's your viewpoint on that?
I don't know enough about it. Obviously, I understand that some like Jewish religion, they practice male circumcision. I don't believe it has any long-term, like, medical, physical effects or harm, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know too much about it. I think if there is a tradition, a belief that doesn't harm somebody, then it, people that
It's acceptable.
that have those traditions and beliefs, then maybe it's acceptable. I'm not going to be kind of standing up against that, but I think anything that causes harm or where the person doesn't have the chance to choose for themselves, I think that's what's possibly I would feel uptight about that.
Well, they don't in the Jewish religion anyway, because the babies don't have.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, children, aren't they, when they get circumcised? Yeah,
So they don't have a choice. So I think for me, that's the thing. I mean, I know it's not as nice or comfortable to be circumcised as a man, a fully grown man. However, I feel like you should always have a choice and agency over your own body.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of a bit of a strange thing to do anyway, isn't it? I somebody deciding, oh, you need to chop off your right hand because
you don't need it. Because it's a dominant arm and it will make you more creative if you're into the
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just,
you don't need a little toe.
Yeah, just chop it off.
I guess I really like to understand the religious belief behind it. All I've ever heard is about cleanliness, but I've never seen that stack up in science as being better or worse anyway.
Yeah, I know. You need to be reading more about the circumcision malarkey. I'll get back to you.
Get back to me, all right. Unless it's a sexual thing, maybe it's more pleasurable. Might be sexually might be a sexual thing. You need to get on the WHO website and have a look and see what it says.
I'll dig around on the WHO.
It's like a doctor who doesn't necessarily believe in it or just not believe in it, to give like the medical view on the sexual side and the hygiene, the health side.
Right. I'll update you then.
Medical and sexual health perspective.
Oh, I need to do an essay.
All right, thank you for chatting. As usual, it's a pleasure and fun.
Yes, thanks, Trace. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.